Okay, so I got a lot of questions on from people on a differential assembly. So I decided to make a little video of showing the inside of the front end differential for a Jeep Cherokee 4x4 1998 model. I have this Jeep Cherokee 1998, and it started making these weird noises. Well, first, I smell this weird smell like propane burning, and I was like, I don't have a propane tank in my car, in my Jeep, and I thought there was some propane was leaking. But what was happening was when the differential fluid leaks and it hits the exhaust, it makes the smell that it produces is just like propane. So I could not figure it out for the longest time, and unfortunately, it was too late for me to catch it, and my differential went to hell. It was the front differential, so I decided to uh, replace it. It was quite a task, and I could not get it done correctly because I'm not a mechanic. But I thought that, if you wanted to attempt and if you are having the same problem, maybe you can see before you proceed. Proceed very cautiously because there is, um, I learned, as I went, did a lot of research on YouTube, bits and pieces here and there, but this is definitely for the pro to do this job. And I wasn't going to spend like a couple of grand on a Jeep because I had only bought the Jeep for $1,000 itself. It was an old Jeep. I just take it on the back roads in Wisconsin, driving around looking for wildlife. Um, so I was first going to get this wheel um, and replace it, but I figured that I would have to open up all these nuts, and this was too much work for me because I'm not a mechanic. I don't have the right tools, and I wasn't gonna spend. And the wheel was like almost $300. And then I went to the junkyard and I picked up a whole assembly for $100, and I replaced it. But this is the old one, and these are the parts. Maybe you will want to look at, and see if you want to replace it yourself. Anyways, if you look at the front, there will be a cover like this, which will be covering the front differential. There is a little nut. You open it up, and you can fill. This is an oil filler nut. Um, what you do is you have to first unscrew all the bolts around it, around all the way. Just loosen them up, pull it, drain the whole fluid. Once the fluid is all drained, pull off this cover, and what you'll see behind it is this whole assembly. And uh, these this will be like so. These things will be stuck right there, you know, like this. You'll see this whole thing assembly like this, and the axles will come through here. One axle here and one axle here. So it's a really long job. The first thing what I did was if you look at from the back end, this is how it's going to be. It's a really long job. Um, First, what I did was I wanted to replace the seal which was leaking. I thought that if I replace the seal, it will solve my problem because this is where it was leaking from. So to do that, you have to first take off the drive shaft, front drive shaft. Um, Once you take this yoke off, which will be on an older car, it'll be difficult to take off because it's been there for like 10, 15, 20 years or whatever. But this, You'll pull the drive shaft off, then you'll take this yoke off, then the seal, you'll pull it with a screwdriver or a seal puller. This is the seal. So you take the seal off, and you can, while you're taking the seal off, it's a good idea for you to replace this bearing. This bearing that's in the back. You have access to this bearing from the back side. But the problem is this. You can replace this bearing, but there is another bearing that's in the front. That's in the front, which you cannot take out from the back. To replace that bearing, you have to go from the front. That'll mean you'll have to open up the whole thing. And probably the cause is this front bearing. The back bearing might be bad. Mine was pretty good, in pretty good shape, but I did still replace it. So I put in a new bearing, and the race, I did not change the race. This is for the front race. There's another race that goes just like this on top of this one, and that is stuck on the casing. You have to really knock it to get it out, and it's very difficult. If you're going from the back end, you can't get it out unless you can pull it out somehow. It's really stuck in there pretty hard. But anyways, you can try to replace the back bearing and replace the seal, put in a new seal in there, and it might stop the leak, and you might be okay if it's just leaking. If it's making some noises and stuff like that, then you're pretty much screwed. I mean, you gotta change the whole thing. You gotta put in a whole new front end, and to do that, what you'll have to do is obviously you'll have to first take off the drive shaft, take off the yoke, take out the seal, take out this another thing that goes in front of the seal, take out this bearing, then the rest will come from the front. The rest will come off from the front. Then what you have to do is, from the front end, you have to first take off your wheel. You'll have to take off the wheel. You have to undo the wheel bearings and pull out the axle out from here. It'll come out. You have to take it out about this much. Take it out so this is free, and it can be hanging out there. Then the axle goes right in there, right in there. You'll pull it out so it's free. Then you will undo these nuts, these bolts, I mean, that are right here too, and this will come out. Then this will be stuck on the side. It'll be holding it on the sides like this with the race on it, both sides. Like I said, it's a huge job. Then once you pull off these will still be stuck over there. Then you have to pull this out of the whole housing. This whole thing will come out from the housing, and this is what the axles turn. See in there this is what the axles will turn. And if you see my differential right here, the teeth are all gone. This is because this seal, the bearing right here, I mean all the little bearings are out of there. This bearing was bad. So it was kind of moving, and it broke the teeth, it broke all the teeth from it. Um, so I took this whole thing out, um, and inspected the bearings in there. And if you see, I don't know if you can see this, but these bearings are in pretty bad shape. You know, these are in, they're all chewed up, you know, and that's why there was a little play in the thing. It wasn't staying straight the way it should have stayed with it, and you know, it was moving, and it broke all these teeth right here. All these teeth are broken. So um, but to replace it, then you should actually get these new, if you're gonna get the whole thing brand new, then you're okay. But if you're not, if you're gonna buy a used one, I would recommend you replacing the bearings. You have to get them pressed out, put new ones in there. This one will also be pressed out in the back. um, this this thing will come off. You put a new bearing in there. um, uh, it's quite a lengthy job. Um, a lot of work. It has to be torqued properly once you put it in there. Um, Once you put it in there, there's a little grease that you have to put, and then turn it and see if it's making a good contact all the way through the teeth. Um, Otherwise, you're gonna spend all that money and try to do it yourself, and it's just not gonna work, and you'll be in the same hole. So in my case, it did not work, and what I had to do was I just took my front drive shaft off, and I've been running my Jeep as a two-wheel instead of a four-wheel, and it's been running just fine. I mean, so this big one does not move inside. The only thing that's moving is the axles that are turning it. So the inside ones are moving, and I make sure that there is no leaks. There is oil in there, so it keeps working. Um, and like I said, my Jeep was cheap, and I didn't want to spend a lot of money in it. I didn't want to put a lot of money into it, and it's running on two-wheel just fine. So anyways, this would be the front. So the assembly would be, this will be front, then this would go connect from the back right there. The first thing you put is the bearing from the front. Before you put it in there, before you put this in there, you'll bring this from the front and put it inside with this bearing in there, and there'll be a race on top which will be stuck to the housing in there that goes on top. And these little bearings, if you can see, are supposed to be in there. So these are all shot, that's why they're laying out just like this. So this will go first in there, and there will be a crusher spacer that goes in there. Crusher spacer. Then there is this race would be stuck into the housing to go on top. Then there will be another bearing that goes from the back and goes in there. Goes like this, bearing. Okay, so bearing, crusher, spacer, bearing, and there will be another race that will be in the housing like this. This is for the sides. Mine is already in there, so basically it'll be something like something like this, but it'll be the same size. This is a little bigger, but it'll be same size, kind of, it'll be in the housing. Then I'll just take this out. Then it will be this little deal goes in there, and then the seal will go in there, and then the yoke will go, it'll all fit in there, and once it all fits, there's a nut that goes in here that holds everything together. Then you will put the front end in, and once you put the front end in, I'll turn this around so you can see. Then you'll put this in with the races on, and there's a little seal that's already in. I saw there was a seal in there, but it was kind of a it wasn't like a rubber seal or anything, but it was to seal this up. It makes a very snug contact on both sides, right there. And then once this is on there, then you have to put this back on and tighten this, but this has to be torqued properly so it's not too tight. If it's too tight, the bearing isn't going to move in there properly. You know, so you have to be really careful if you're going to do this yourself. Like I said, this is a job for the professional because they have the right tools. And if you tighten this too much on there, it's going to restrict it from moving the way it should move. And these gears have to be lined properly for it to work. Otherwise, you're going to run into the same problem, breaking all the teeth right here. And like I said, I couldn't do it correctly, and ended up just disconnecting the drive shaft, front drive shaft from here. And I've been running the Jeep, and it's been running just fine. I just don't have the 4-wheel anymore. It's just 2 wheels. So good luck if you're gonna do this yourself, and hopefully it works out. If you have any questions, send me a little message. I'll try to help you as much as I can. But like I said, this is a big job. It took me about 6 hours to do it. But then again, I'm not a mechanic. So if I can do it in 6 hours, you can too. Good luck.